When we talk about who avoidants truly fall in love with, we have to start with the most misunderstood truth of all: they fall for the one who chooses themselves first. Not the one who tries the hardest. Not the one who bends over backwards to please them. And certainly not the one who sacrifices their own sense of self just to be chosen. No, they fall for the person who is already whole, already grounded, already walking in their worth long before the avoidant enters the picture. You see, avoidants are deeply sensitive to energy. They instinctively recoil from neediness, even if they themselves are deeply lonely. They're allergic to anything that smells like emotional dependency. And that's not because they're cold or incapable of love. It's because they're terrified of being swallowed whole, of losing their autonomy, of being responsible for someone else's happiness. So when someone comes along who is already anchored in themselves, who radiates a quiet self-assuredness and doesn't orbit their entire life around being loved, that's magnetic. It disarms the avoidance nervous system. It says, I don't need to control you, and I don't need you to complete me. Think about it this way: love rooted in need breeds fear. But love rooted in choice breeds respect. The moment you stop needing someone to validate you, you shift the entire dynamic. Suddenly, the avoidant isn't running from you. They're curious about you. They're drawn to the mystery of someone who is whole within themselves. They start asking questions. Why don't they chase me? Why are they not seeking my approval? What is it about them that makes them so centered? And in that curiosity, a door opens. Because where curiosity leads, connection often follows. This isn't about playing games. It's not about pretending to be indifferent. Choosing yourself first is not a performance. It's a way of being. It means you have cultivated a life that fulfills you beyond romantic attachment. It means you hold standards for how you want to be treated, and you're not afraid to enforce them. It means you know your value doesn't decrease just because someone fails to see it. And when you live like that, something powerful happens. The avoidant, who has spent their life protecting their space, starts to feel safe enough to step closer. And here's the paradox: the moment you stop trying to win their love is the moment you become worthy of it in their eyes. Because now you're no longer mirroring their fear of engulfment. You're embodying strength. You're demonstrating that love with you would be an addition to their life, not a takeover of it. And that distinction is everything. That's the difference between someone they keep at arm's length and someone they allow into their world. It's also worth noting that people who choose themselves first are not selfish. They're self-led. They don't seek to dominate the avoidant or fix them. They understand that love is not about control, but about freedom. And ironically, freedom is the very thing avoidants crave most, but rarely trust enough to accept. When you are at peace with yourself, when your happiness is not hanging on their response, you offer them that freedom without even trying. You become the safest place they've ever known, not because you're chasing them, but because you're not. This is the soul-level truth. Avoidants do not fall for the person who loses themselves trying to be loved. They fall for the one who already is loved, for themselves, for their life, for their purpose. That kind of energy doesn't plead to be chosen. It chooses itself every single day. And that choice over time makes them the most irresistible person in the room. So if you want to know who avoidants truly fall in love with, start here. Become the person who doesn't need them to feel whole. Because the moment you stop trying to fill the void with someone else, you become the kind of person they can't help but move toward. If there's one thing most people misunderstand about avoidance, it's this: their distance is not a rejection of love. It's a defense of freedom. The avoidant's deepest fear isn't that love won't last. It's that love will cost them their autonomy. That's why the person they truly fall in love with isn't the one who demands closeness or pushes for more than they're ready to give. It's the one who offers them space, not as a manipulation, but as a natural extension of their own self-assuredness. Avoidants live in a world where love is often felt suffocating. Maybe they grew up with emotional chaos, where closeness meant losing themselves. Maybe they learned early on that connection came with expectations they couldn't meet. Whatever the origin, they associate intimacy with being trapped. And so they build walls not to keep others out, but to keep themselves safe. This is why pressure backfires. The harder you push for closeness, the faster they retreat. It's not that they don't care, it's that they feel like they're disappearing. But when someone comes along who understands the value of freedom, who doesn't chase or cling, who respects boundaries instead of trying to bulldoze them, everything shifts. Suddenly, the avoidance nervous system isn't screaming run. It's starting to whisper maybe. And that maybe is the doorway to real connection. Think about it this way: love is not about possession. It's about expansion. And expansion can't happen in a cage. When you stop trying to grip the relationship and instead allow it to unfold naturally, you remove the avoidant's biggest fear from the equation. You show them that being with you doesn't mean losing themselves. In fact, it means discovering more of who they are. That's when they lean in, not because they're forced to, but because they want to. This is why emotional patience is such a powerful form of strength. People often mistake patience for passivity, but they're not the same thing. Passivity waits for something to change. Patience trusts the process of change. It says, I don't need you to move at my pace. I trust that what's meant to unfold will unfold. And that trust is irresistible to someone who has spent their whole life feeling pressured to perform emotionally. The avoidant also notices subtle energy. They feel when someone is trying to pull them closer out of fear, and they feel when someone is content in their own skin and allows them to approach at their own speed. The latter is magnetic, because now, instead of being an object of demand, they have the space to choose. And choice is the foundation of genuine love. No one, avoidant or not, can love deeply when they feel coerced. It's a paradox. The more freedom you give, the closer they want to be. That's not just psychology, that's human nature. When we feel free, we drop our defenses. When we feel trusted, we reveal more of ourselves. And when we're not afraid of being consumed, we actually crave deeper intimacy. This is how the person who offers space ends up building the deepest bond of all. Now, offering freedom doesn't mean tolerating emotional unavailability or accepting crumbs. It means holding your own center and refusing to chase someone into closeness. It means saying, I value connection, but not at the expense of either of us losing ourselves. It's about balance, honoring their autonomy while staying rooted in your own needs and standards. That balance is rare, and rare is irresistible. In the end, avoidants don't fall in love with the one who tries to break down their walls. They fall for the one who quietly sits outside them, content in their own worth, until the avoidant decides to open the gate. They fall for the one who teaches them, often without words, that love doesn't mean losing freedom. It means expanding within it. At the core of every avoidant is a truth most people never see. And that's exactly why most relationships with them never reach their full potential. Beneath the emotional distance, beneath the cool composure and self-sufficiency, there's not a void but a wound. A wound often born from early experiences where vulnerability was punished, ignored, or unsafe. And because of that, avoidants spend their lives wearing armor so thick that few ever even attempt to look beyond it. But the ones they truly fall in love with, they're the ones who do. They're the ones who see through the facade and choose to meet the soul beneath it without judgment. You have to understand, avoidance is not a personality flaw. It's a protective strategy. It's a nervous system saying, I've been hurt before, and I won't let that happen again. It's a person who has equated love with danger, deciding it's safer to stay behind the walls. And when the world constantly rewards performance over authenticity, those walls become second nature. That's why most people only ever connect with the mask, the independent, distant, unbothered version of the avoidant. They respond to the armor instead of the person beneath it. And the avoidant senses that. They know when someone is reacting to the surface instead of seeking the substance. But the one who sees deeper, the one who notices the subtle cracks in the armor, the fleeting moments of softness, the hints of fear beneath the withdrawal, that person stands out. That's the person who's not fooled by detachment. They understand that avoidance isn't coldness, it's caution. And they approach it not with judgment, but with compassion. They don't try to rip the armor off. They simply become a safe enough presence for the avoidant to take it off themselves. This isn't about fixing them. It's not about rescuing them from their pain. It's about creating a space where they no longer need to hide. It's about seeing the humanity beneath the defense and loving that, not the potential, not the fantasy, but the very real, very imperfect human beneath all the strategies. And that kind of seeing is rare. It's why avoidants often fall hardest for the one who looks into their eyes and says, without words, I see you, all of you, and I'm not afraid, because here's the truth. Most avoidants don't believe they can be loved in their entirety. They believe they have to be strong, self-contained, untouchable to be worthy of connection. And so they push people away before those people have a chance to reject the real them. But when someone comes along who's not scared of their silence, who doesn't interpret distance as disinterest, who can hold their vulnerability gently without trying to exploit it, that rewrites their internal story. It shows them that love isn't a transaction or a trap. It's a safe place to land. And once they feel truly seen, everything changes. The person who once avoided closeness starts to seek it. The one who once kept conversations shallow begins to share things they've never spoken aloud. Because love built on being deeply seen isn't just attractive, it's transformative. It heals parts of them that have been hiding for decades. And that healing makes them bond on a level that casual attraction never could. So if you want to know who avoidants truly fall in love with, it's not the one who tries to outmaneuver their defenses. It's the one who looks at those defenses and says, I understand why they're there, and I'll still be here when you're ready to put them down. It's the one who doesn't chase the mask. They cherish the human behind it. Here's the paradox that most people miss about avoidance. The very thing that makes them keep their distance is also the thing that ultimately draws them in, strength, and not the loud performative kind of strength. I'm talking about the quiet, unwavering strength of someone who knows their worth so deeply that they will not tolerate being treated as an afterthought. Avoidants don't truly fall for the ones who overextend, overexplain, or overstay. They fall for the ones who are willing to walk away the moment their dignity is compromised. Because strength to an avoidant isn't just attractive, it's grounding. Remember, avoidants are hypersensitive to control. They're wired to pull back when they feel someone needs them to be whole. So when someone stands firm in their standards, when they don't plead, chase, or contort themselves just to stay in someone's life, it sends a very different message. It tells the avoidant, I am here because I choose to be, not because I have to be. And that is a language they understand: choice over dependency, boundaries over desperation. Here's the deeper psychology behind it. Avoidants equate closeness with a loss of self. But when they meet someone who refuses to lose themselves in the relationship, they feel something they rarely feel: safe, safe to trust, safe to respect, safe to stay. Because if you're strong enough to walk away, you're also strong enough not to consume them. And in a mind wired to fear engulfment, that distinction is everything. Now, this isn't about playing hard to get or using detachment as a manipulation tactic. It's about embodying self-respect so fully that you won't accept less than what you deserve. It's about knowing that your worth doesn't hinge on their behavior. If they withdraw, you don't crumble. If they cross a boundary, you don't rationalize it away. If they leave, you don't beg them to come back. That inner solidity doesn't push them away. It commands their attention. And something profound happens when you embody that energy. The power dynamic shifts. You're no longer chasing the avoidance approval. Instead, they're confronted with the reality that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. That realization awakens something in them that distance and silence alone never could: desire. They start to see you not as someone they can come and go from freely, but as someone they could lose. And that fear of losing you is often the spark that brings them closer than they've ever dared to come. Because the truth is, avoidants are not immune to love. They feel deeply, often more deeply than they admit. But they also test, sometimes unconsciously. They test how far they can pull back before you break. They test whether you'll betray yourself to keep them close. And the person who passes those tests is the one who won't trade self-worth for proximity. That's the person they trust with their heart. The willingness to walk away isn't about punishing them. It's about protecting your peace. It's about saying, I would love to walk this path with you, but I don't need to lose myself to do it. And ironically, that's exactly what makes them want to walk it with you. Because when someone refuses to tolerate disrespect, they become rare. And rarity in the human psyche is always valued more deeply.